Awesome. Welcome back. Now let's dive into actions and change. Now, actions and change allows us to perform certain capabilities, which I'm sure you've guessed are actions and changes against our resources in our accounts. Now, the first capability is automation, and this is going to simplify our common maintenance and deployment tasks with regards to EC2 and other AWS resources that we need to keep up to date or compliant. The next capability is a maintenance window. Now, a maintenance window allows us to define a schedule or a window, in other words, for when we want to perform potentially disruptive actions. So you don't want to have to patch midday potentially. So you can schedule a maintenance window maybe overnight where your automation kicks in and starts patching all of your instances. And we'll look at these a little bit deeper here coming up. The last capability that's here is change calendar. So this works hand in hand with the maintenance windows, and these allow us to create date and time ranges for when actions can or cannot be performed. So it allows us to create a calendar-based schedule on when things can be done. Now, a change calendar is pretty common in large enterprises, so this is a very, very good addition by AWS for any platform or operational teams. So let's go ahead, we'll end the presentation part of this, and let's actually dive into the AWS console again and start working with actions and change. Cool, let's dive into actions and change. So with our overview we just had, we discussed at how the actions and change section provides capabilities for us to take actions on our AWS resources. Now, the first capability I want to talk about is automation. Now, automation allows us to simplify common tasks revolving around our EC2 and other AWS resources. Now, they're as flexible as performing one-off tasks, like creating a snapshot, or you can develop your own complex workflows to perform these automation tasks. This automation capability really allows teams to free up a lot of their time by automating all of the tedious tasks that they normally complete. So let's just explore this here really quickly. If I go to Execute Automation, this brings us to our Choose Document screen. Now, we'll talk about documents in depth a little bit later on, but for now, we'll just walk through this process so you can see how automation works. Now, the first thing you might notice is that we have 4 tabs currently available. We can filter by Owned by Amazon, Owned by Me, Shared with Me, or All Documents. So if we go to Owned by Amazon, you'll see that they have their own categories listed here on the left. And these all fall under a main or common ops-related task that you might complete, like EC2 tasks, there's patching tasks, or even AMI management. Now, what I want to do, just for the sake of this demo, is I want to go to Create Image. So I'm going to select AWS Create Image, and you'll see it populates our document details here at the bottom. We see our name, the description, and then we have our version selection. Now, it goes to default, which makes sense, but you can also specify latest, or you can specify a specific version if there were multiple. And again, we'll dig into this a little bit deeper coming up when we talk about documents over here on the left. So I'll leave it at default. I'm going to click on Next. And this brings us to our execution phase. So do we want a simple execution where we just execute on specific targets? Do we want to rate control it so we can execute these tasks on multiple targets, but we can limit the concurrency? So based on how many targets we want to do at once or a percentage, as you can see down here, we can control granularly how many executions we want to take place. So we can limit it to 1 at a time, we can do 50% of the targets at a time, and we can specify our error thresholds. Now, the next option is multi-account and region. So this does exactly what it sounds like. It allows us to execute our automation tasks in multiple accounts and multiple regions, but we can do so from one central location. You'll see when we select this option, we get this target accounts and regions section that we can fill out. So what we can do is specify account IDs or an OU ID from an organization. We can specify our regions. We define the automation execution role, and then we can add more or remove them. Now you also see we have an optional rate control. So we can do the same thing where we can limit the number of targets that are being executed on. And we can also set an error threshold. So this would allow us to essentially deploy to an entire organizational unit if we wanted to with one task. And then the last one we see is manual execution. So this is where we go ahead and manually specify all of the settings and the steps one by one. For the sake of longevity in this demo, I'm going to pick simple execution, and you can see we have input parameters that I need to fill out. So we need to pick the instance ID of the EC2 instance that we want to make an image of. So if you have them already in a list somewhere, you can populate the string here, or you can toggle this little interactive picker. So you'll see that we have one instance running right now. I'm going to select that instance, and you can see it's populated now at the top of this little section. And then we have a couple more parameters. We have no reboot, so if we want, we can skip the reboot phase of creating an image. And if we set true, that means no reboot will occur. So let's go ahead and do that now. And then we specify our role that we want this automation to assume. Now I'm going to select one that was set up previously. And then you can also see that we can specify tags so we can group and filter our results. Now, one last thing before we execute this is if you open up the CLI section, it gives you the command that's needed in order to execute this. So if I wanted to, I could do CLI and it auto-populates this information for me. This is a neat little feature and it's often overlooked. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click on execute. And you'll notice I actually get a failed status. And I'm guessing this is going to be because of some permissions. So if I go in here to the step ID where it failed, there we go. Yep, it cannot create the image. So let me really quickly, I'm going to pause this clip. And then once I edit my role, I'll resume. Okay, so I edited my role and gave it EC2 permissions. Let's go ahead and I want to rerun this execution. So I'm going to go back to automation. We're going to select execute again. I'm going to choose the same document, and I'll fill in the exact same information as we did before. So instance ID, we set this to true, and I'm going to pick that same role. Now I'll click on execute, and we'll see that it's pending now. So what I'll do is I'll refresh a couple times, and I'll go ahead and pause the clip here once again. We'll let this run, and when it's done, we'll resume and we'll dive into it. Okay, so that took a couple of minutes, but you can see we have a success status now. It took the create image action, and then there's a step name, and once again, we'll dissect these a little bit deeper later on. But if you notice, we can check the input that we provided and the output. So what it did is it gave us the image ID that was created from the step. So now if I go to EC2, and I load the AMIs, I should see this AMI here, and there you go right there. I do. So 5445, 5445. So it is the ID that was just created. And you'll see that it automatically created an AMI name for us as well. And we'll discuss how this was done here later on. So that's how you can execute an automation with a simple series of clicks or a CLI command. This allowed us with the click of a button to shut an image down, snapshot an image or create an image from it, name that image and make it available, and then reboot that server back up and make sure that it comes up successfully. Now, when we get into the shared resources section of this course, you're going to see the amount of tasks that you can perform and how you can use this in your own daily work. It really opens up the door for a lot of automation for tasks, so you can free your time up to do something a little bit bigger and better outside of patching and operational tasks. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this automation section. When we pick back up in the next clip, we're going to start looking at change calendar and maintenance windows.